Welcome to Shasta. It's just the moment before all the eclipses coming up, the year 2017, and we're sitting here and in this really beautiful setting. We've got some of our braves around us, and we have Keegan on the camera and Looking Frog on audio, so hopefully we've got good video and good audio. But what we would be cared to talk just a little bit about is what has occurred as we eclipse Usury, what is this really about, the eclipse movement and Usury? But we're surrounded just right now in a really very, very beautiful parkland, and you could say that this is the headwaters of the Sacramento, because we're right at Shasta, beautiful springs coming out of the ground, and we're up around about 8,000 feet or so, and the water that fell here 50 years ago by precipitation, it has been studied to show that that's something which is coming out now of the ground today. So it just does show you that in a cycle of time something could have occurred 50 years ago, and the precipitation that year is what's flowing out now, you see. So it's very amazing. We're surrounded really by emerald algae and mosses and alder tree and willow and thorn bushes and things. And you've got yellow jackets and wasps and hornets and things that are really buzzing incredibly with life, and you might occasionally hear some bird sounds. But anyway, we came here to Shasta to connect in with our family, and it's amazing that eclipse is coming up, and might there be a new day and a renaissance that's here, and could we recognise this? Yeah. So what questions might anybody have?
Recovering parent-child heaven.
Okay, so straight away, you're not a thing, and when you've been relegated to be a thing by the court, that is absolutely sinful, right? And that's the kind of thing that's going on at the moment. So you're not a thing, and how dare anybody say that you're just an account, or how dare anybody not care for verifiable information. But the reason for that at the moment is that in this infanticide, where you're only being held as an infant and not to have a mind, and that you're being considered a lunatic by this guild that's occupied the public courthouse all over the earth, and they convert your claim down to a level of a complaint, like what has happened to me, and that everyone that's working in the courthouse for the most part is not working for you and I today. But how could they, when you and I, we don't own our own currency at all? And it starts out with an infanticide that happens by you being only considered to be an infant, which is a state of mind, and that you're not really considered to be living. So it starts straight out by you only being considered dead. So you could be yourself connected to a dead condition, which is what, 4 or 5 or 6 people deciding your fate. That's dead. There's no central organised nervous system inside that. You and I, we have to have a day today where we get rid of the idea that all religions, meaning do it again, lie, straight up a fiction in some region, is going to help you. You can look at all these rabbis and priests and people like that, and it's not helped a single thing for thousands of years. Some religions at least 4,000 years, others a couple thousand years. But you're going to see these priests, you're going to see people in the temples and stuff, but you look outside and all you can see is trash. And what you can see coming out of people's mouths is sexist, big time, without anybody questioning it. It's like using the vestibular system to be up there and not have any idea that, hey, what do you mean you're up there? You mean to say there's a lower self? All the literature that these people read fully doesn't disclose to them that there's an up and a down inside the literature. How bad is that? But when you put things in terms of going up, with the vestibular system, that's stressful of itself, So ladders, presenting things with ladders and things, how crazy. But you and I, we have a pending crisis, and that is the slow collapsing of the world currency, and here on Turtle Island, the collapsing of the currency to a certain financial martial law. And so the underestimation of the dangers of the collapsing of the currency of the earth is really something that, Eclipse.now or eclipsenow.net is addressing.
So, what about restoring common law?
So, where you are only held to be a thing, that's commercial law as a thing, meaning that you cannot be held under commercial law. And how dare anybody make your issue something that's under commercial law, which that's what's going on. Like my son, for instance, who's been kidnapped, was cloistered, was put to death practically on a couple of occasions, and he's not been able to have his father. You and I, we live in a world at the moment that's probably amongst the most sinful, insane society, personally. And so, that's something which I actively care to change, So sometimes somebody's ears are burned, aren't they? Because, I'm just sorry, I don't agree with any religion, okay? I don't, right? So straight up, why don't you know that? Invite me if you want to hear that. Otherwise, why argue with me that you don't, but you could think about points that I raise, like most of these religions are sexist. They're putting things in terms of him and her wrongfully and excluding the other gender perpetually, non-stop. Putting things in terms of an upper self, a lower self, how crazy. Telling you to think, how weird. Having to put all sorts of thoughts in your head. Mind reading. And you've got people, even old crogies, and God help us, they're amongst the most cranky people you've ever met in your life. And even here in Shasta, you've got some cranky old people running around reckoning that fictional stuff in your head is going to help everything. It isn't. But having a quiet, relaxed voice, being able to treat your guests nicely, having the ability to be able to listen and hear, rather than the first night that I connect with you, you say, I'm going to talk about me. And this old coot tells you about himself, God help us. But I saw all the young ears were just bored. But I was begging, please, could you actually help this conversation? Because it was so boring. Okay, keep it going. Let's go.
On that note, create a constitution. How do you plan to create a constitutional currency, and what is the alm?
Okay, so 500 years of existedness has been under a centralised, antiquated system that cannot work for you and I to be involved in your transactions whatsoever when they don't need to be, period. You and I, we have a public ledger which can be to verify your transactions, time-stamped, and this is a free system. It doesn't cost you anything. Why should it? So it's a new day, okay?
A new day.
Yes.
And how important is it to uphold original rights? And what are the original rights?
The right that my child has to have his father, that is just trashed by this black and white frocked, wigged system in America. Yeah, there you go. You don't care. This system doesn't give a crap about kids.
And on applying resource after we've eclipsed usury.
It's possible for you and I to create money asset-backed. So, for instance, this whole state needs to be recanopied. Everywhere you go, you see people using the land. The farmers have ruined the land fully, and they're not doing anything to change it too much. And then more and more and more land is just being ruined more and more, And so, can we keep doing that? I think it's a time for aesthetics. One should stop and be more about aesthetics, yes? So today, all of the things which is of an interest is open spaces, no fixed furniture, places where people sit to be together, where you have an entrance to your home that's very tall. It could be more of a focus on where food is prepared today. People love to see this rather than being shut away. Like the cafe when we went today, you can't see anyone who's working in the kitchen, and it's really old style. See, but modern styles are more open, and there is no fixed furniture, and Homes are more in the earth, but we could have projects which we can create arms for, and it's asset backed. So $750 billion that's spent to re-canopy California, that's spent for 1 year. That gives every working person maybe 9,000, 11,000 something in their hand. But you need more than that, and you need to have to be put into circulation what can be absorbed by your product and service, and this should be a rule based on that. And this should be a service for all of us, not someone's private service that you and I are being given, because that's setting someone up for superior, inferior, and every single religion is based upon this inferior, superior, and they want to write up and down. They want to get your brain up and down. They have no idea about, they'll say you have a higher self, meaning you have a lower self. You've got a lot of mind reading, so others will tell you what you're thinking. Like maybe you can have had an experience of seeing some old coot tell me today what I was thinking, but how could that bloke know anything about anyone else's thinking? He had no idea about his own thinking, nor even that he bored the hell out of all of the younger ones for 40 minutes or more, just talking diatribe about his own life. How's that going to help you and I? Wrong. Okay?
So building homes into the earth, could you tell us more about Life Ceramic?
Homes should be put in the earth straight away, because everything you see right now is an eyesore, okay? That's it. Disappear your eyesore, period, where you are, and get into the earth and cover over everything and make the earth good. Why? Because it's a insulative blanket that can keep you warm in the years to come, because you're coming in for an ice age. If you're cold now, hey, you're going to be miserable shortly, all right? Unless you learn how to live in the cold, because you're going to come into an ice age. Anybody's in cold, wet, damp climate, wrong. Many people died in the last mini ice age, okay?
I've noticed when looking at the website, besides ending usury and changing the politics, there's a deeper spiritual aspect to this eclipse. Could you explain a little bit more about this?
Deeper than changing the politic. Yeah, these are insignificant today. Most will want to hold us back in the past. They don't even know what the future is, but they want to take us back into the past. But you could really say that all religions that came to be, where they put things in terms of a sexism, where the sun would be this, the earth would be that, and the tree would be him or her, and how ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life, okay? But you need to hear me say that. Maybe you never heard anyone ever say that, okay? But when you examine it, hey, I worked for 5 years and examined one area. It's called gender egalitarianism. If you haven't read anything about gender, then how can you talk anything to me? But if I said to you, why can't you be more aware of your gender and the way you're using it? And someone says, screw you, like the old bloke did, you know. That's in some Essene movement that's all into him and her, and then they'll say the mother, and let's protect the mother, but many more fathers are losing their lives before mothers. He's an idiot, sorry, okay? But he's someone's baby. Any more questions?
Yeah, could you explain more about the moratorium? Could you give us some details on what a moratorium is? I know I didn't ever hear about that word until you brought it up to me. I find fascination.
August the 21st is the first solar eclipse, which is a major solar eclipse that goes across the Earth. The idea that I've been forwarding is, let's use the eclipse to check the box, yes, you want reform in banking, and make this eclipsing usury. So, you know, if we can build the biggest movement the Earth's ever seen, and we can vote to eclipse usury, we can enact a year of a moratorium where you're just asked to know how currency is created if you're in government. That's it. And then you can get on with government again. But until you know how currency is created, how can you be in government? Do you know what I mean? Okay, so that's an idea. I reckon that's a really good idea. I have never heard anyone with a better idea.
Oh.
And so January the 31st, it kicks off a moratorium. But then January the 23rd, 2018, we're handing a notice into the Provost Marshals, Master Generals, of being asked for a moratorium in government making any new decisions in banking for one lunar eclipse year from January the 31st to January the 31st, 2018 to January the 21st, 2019. And it's the path of least resistance, right? I really care, you know, where you are, you're listening. You can have some comfort in your day, but you could be hassled. You might know what that's like to be hassled, yeah? But for several years now, my child has been stolen. No one has any claim, no title, but you're living in a world of a black frock, white wigged conditioning of a monopolisation, and you've got people, others, just like want to speak to you in La La Land and tell you about how some letter is written or how to put a lace in your shoe. You know, you and I, we have to have more prioritisation in ourselves. Because you've got water that comes here from Shasta. It's unaffected by drought or darkness. Comes out at a steady rate. The water that comes out fell 50 years ago to the day in precipitation. Stored and is underground for that long. Comes out of the ground here at 42 degrees. And that's mature water. It's a very, very amazing spot where we are. And it's just very beautiful to be amongst the elder trees, you know, the alder trees and willow, and then with thorn bush.
Could you explain what you meant by mature water?
Mature water is water which has levity. All water that's being used at the moment is a water that won't create proper fructogenic much and causes soil that it goes on to become more and more and more hydrophobic and eventually not be useful. So water that's mature is extremely different. It's water that spins to the left and it has a property of levity, meaning it wants to rise, and it only can if you have shade. So where there is no shade, you fight the situation if you have a garden. Lifefood agrarianism is something you could learn about, which is another work. Anyway, if you're listening to this, I hope you're having a really wonderful day. I hope this has given you a little bit of insight into the movement. We came to Shasta to connect in with everyone, and I'm really glad that we got this piece, that we could put this out onto the net. Anyway, I hope everybody's having a really wonderful day. Thank you so much to Shasta and everybody here in Shasta, and we're going to be moving on to Nevada City as we move more toward this movement. Anyway, I really love to thank all the people who have been assisting, and you should know this is a new day where if you're out there right now, go to eclipsenow.net, and if you're a programmer, you could be paid to assist to help us get what we need to be online for all of us. So it's a free service for all of us into the future. No charges to be for any transaction and no taxes, and you get a standard of living in your life. And it's a new day where there is no reason to have the system that we have at the moment. We can have a new system with a renaissance, and if you go and learn about this, go to eclipsenow.net and check this out. Anyway, love you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Oh.